The Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord Christ.
On the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was going through the region between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 lepers approached him. Keeping their distance, they called out, saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priest." And as they went, they were made clean. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He prostrated himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus asked, "Were not 10 made clean? But the other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Please be seated. At first glance, the gospel lesson this morning sounds like a typical healing story. 10 people with leprosy cry out for mercy. Jesus responds, and they are healed. But when we look closer, the story becomes less about physical healing and more about faith, obedience, and gratitude. Luke, alone among the gospel writers, tells this particular story. Jesus is still traveling toward Jerusalem, and the setting between Samaria and Galilee explains why both Jews and Samaritans are present. The people in the story had leprosy, a condition that we now know is caused by a bacterial infection, and if left untreated, can cause severe damage to the skin, nerves, limbs, and eyes. The most obvious symptom is severe skin lesions, which would have prevented anyone with the condition from being able to hide it. Because it was once thought to be highly contagious, if someone developed symptoms, they were required by law to be removed from the community. They were separated from family and their faith community. They were unable to work or worship. They were shunned by society, forbidden physical contact with anyone who did not have the disease, and required by the law of Moses to shout out they were unclean to anyone who approached them. But they couldn't just go off and hide or live somewhere far away from the community that was ostracizing them, because they were dependent on that community. They were forced to live just outside the village limits so that they could rely on the charity of the people passing by. Those with leprosy were outcast by law and custom. They keep their distance because they must. In the world they live in, leprosy meant exclusion from family, community, temple, everything that gave a person identity and belonging. They lived on the edges of things, seeing life continue just beyond their reach. According to Jewish law, if someone was cured of leprosy, he or she would have to go to the priest, who would perform very elaborate and costly rituals before declaring the person clean. When the 10 lepers, keeping their distance, called out, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us," Jesus doesn't heal them by touching them. He doesn't even pronounce them healed. Instead, he says, "Go and show yourself to the priests." And so they go. They obey. And as they go, Luke tells us they are made clean. That detail matters because the healing doesn't happen first and then obedience follows. The healing happens in their obeying. As Fred Craddock notes, Jesus treats the lepers as already healed, and in their act of obedient faith, their healing takes place. In that sense, the first part of the story is a typical healing story, but the second part, what follows when one of them turns back, is a salvation story. The Greek word translated "made well" can also mean saved. Luke is telling us that to be made well is more than physical recovery. It is restoration of the whole person, body and soul, into relationship with God. And faith takes two forms in this story. The 9 Jews obey Jesus and go to the priests. The one Samaritan turns back, praising God and giving thanks. Faith as obedience, and faith as praise and thanksgiving. There are several reasons why this Samaritan would not have gone with the other 9. For one thing, as a Gentile, the law of Moses would not have applied to him. There would have been no reason for him to present himself to the priest. For another, as a Gentile, he was only accepted into the community of lepers, a group of people shunned by the larger community, because they were also believed to be unclean. But he would not have been accepted by the people in the city itself. His turning back to Jesus does not necessarily mean he was more grateful than the other 9. He may simply have known there was nothing for him in the city. We don't know what this man understood about Jesus' identity, but we do know that he recognized divine mercy at work through him. And he recognized that God was the one who had healed him. Once again, Jesus tells a story in which a Gentile receives God's blessing. Once again, Jesus centers a foreigner in the story of faith. This foreigner, Jesus says, the one least expected to understand, becomes the model of faith for all. Perhaps it doesn't seem so significant to us today that God would heal a Samaritan, but it is significant, given the cultural context of this story, that God's blessing is for all, not just those who keep the commandments. God's mercy breaks boundaries. The Samaritan falls at Jesus' feet and gives thanks. The word Luke uses to describe this thanksgiving is the root of the word Eucharist. The Samaritan's gratitude is not an obligation, it is faith made visible. It is worship. Luke wants us to see that his life has been redirected by this encounter. He's not just healed, he is made whole because his faith includes thanksgiving. But what do we do with Jesus' words, "Your faith has made you well," when not everyone is healed? Many of us here have prayed fervently for healing and still live with illness and loss. Does that mean our faith is too small? Kimberly Bracken Long offers a gentle word here. She observes, Jesus' words, "Your faith has made you well," are not about cause and effect. Faith is not a mechanism that makes prayers work. Instead, she writes, to have faith is to live it, and to live it is to give thanks. It is the thanking that saves the grateful leper, and such thankfulness is available to all of us in every circumstance. In other words, gratitude is not the result of faith. It is faith. To give thanks is to trust that God is at work, even when the outcome isn't what we hoped for. It's to believe that we are held in mercy in all circumstances, in joy and in suffering, in health and in sickness. That's good news for all of us, those who are healed and those who are still waiting for healing, those whose prayers are answered as they hoped, and those who still live with pain and uncertainty. Faith doesn't promise us a certain outcome. It promises us relationship. Gratitude is how that relationship is lived. To practice gratitude, even in difficulty, is to trust that God is still at work in our lives and in the world. Long writes, when we practice gratitude, we find that faith is given in abundance, pressed down and overflowing. That kind of gratitude changes people. It changes congregations. Worship becomes less about what we get out of it and more about what we bring to it. Thanksgiving and praise to the giver of all good gifts. Stewardship becomes less about duty and more about joy. Mission becomes less about obligation and more about grateful love. That is what faith looks like in action. It is not a possession we hold, but a way of living. When we gather for the Eucharist this morning, we do what the Samaritan did. We turn back to the source of our healing. We give thanks. The Eucharist, whose very name means thanksgiving, is the Church's defining act of gratitude. The deliberate return of our hearts to God, who gives us new life again and again. The gift of God's love is not withdrawn from us if we forget to say thank you, but the relationship changes when we do. Gratitude makes us whole. Who we are is God's gift to us, and what we become is our gift to God. The Samaritan knew that. which is why he returned. His gratitude completed the healing that had begun on the road. So this week, I invite you to notice how your heart shifts when you say thank you. Thank someone who doesn't expect it. Thank God for something small, even on a hard day. Gratitude reorients us. It opens our eyes to God's presence already at work. Each act of gratitude becomes a small act of faith, a quiet way of acknowledging that everything we have comes from God. Get up and go on your way, Jesus says. Your faith has made you well. May our going, our living, our giving, our thanking be the sign that we too have been made whole. Thanks be to God.